Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to Talking Niagara this morning. And I guess this morning's show, just to let you know, is brought to you by Spin Legal, a podcast by Invictus Legal, which happens on Tuesday, 6 p.m. So go search that out. Search out the Spin Legal page, and you'll find a connection to it. All right. So there we go. Pass that
How much
on.
money they're
everybody.
paying us? How much money are they paying us? I want my cut.
They
from that
pay for the streaming, Dave. We get the streaming platform off of them, so we
Yeah,
get
but
that.
I'm a star. I'm a star. Where's my contract?
Yeah. Okay. 5 injured during a Ukraine drone attack on a Russian oil terminal. We didn't get to this one yesterday, but okay, that seems to keep changing every 5 minutes. It changes that bloody thing. It's the Independent from the UK. Yeah, so they basically, this drone attack happened a couple of days ago, and basically they've been just putting a new front on. The weekend, Vladimir Zelensky was basically saying, with what's happening in Iran, that Ukraine has gotten forgotten. And then he puts it back on the headlines, I guess.
Yeah, basically, that's the part I got out of it. Yeah, he's right about that too, of course. But the Iranian war, this gives Russia a bit more flexibility, actually, because they can start feeding. Iran was selling Russia drone after drone after drone. Now Russia might be able to turn the tables and start selling them stuff. The Chinese were in Iran making a deal about missiles just before the war began. So I don't know if any of them have been delivered. But the war, it seems like from early reports, depends on who you listen to, it looks as if the initial blast of killing, decapitating the Khomeini plus 48 of his top advisors and other leaders, was meant to have a quick end to the war. I think that was what they felt originally, that they could get that done and then restart negotiations. And I guess initially they did start saying, well, let's start those up again. But then the Iranian turned their back on that, saying, no, look, we've had negotiations with you twice in the last year, and both times you bombed us while the negotiations were still going on. So you didn't wait until the negotiations. You didn't declare anything. You bombed the crap out of us after when we were negotiating with you the first time, and you bombed the crap out of us now when you're negotiating the second time. As a matter of fact, you let us believe that we were close to a deal. And everybody figures, well, they got rid of the Khomeini. That means they're headless and the regime will collapse. They forget that the Khomeini was 86 years old, and everybody be preparing for his death for a long time, because he's an old man in his 80s, and he wasn't the healthiest of dudes anyway.
They're likely to have another person in waiting to take over anyway.
Yeah. So how this relates to Russia is just that Russia, Iran, and Venezuela contributed hugely to the shadow fleet of tankers, and now they're going to stick together like glue. I don't know how much more they can help us, but anyway, now Russia's going to be supplying Iran, and that will probably keep this thing going longer than they thought. They thought that they could just keep blasting Iran and Iran would capitulate, but there's no one to take over and Russia could keep supplying Iran with a lot of weapons, because that keeps weapons away from the Ukraine war, and that's one of the critical things. Critics of this war is that it takes weapons away from Ukraine. If we're using them in the Middle East, and if they're going to go for 5 weeks, bomb the crap out of Iran for 5 weeks, they're going to use up a lot of munitions, a lot, and that means that Ukraine gets less. That's the whole theory.
Yeah. The other thing, of course, is that in order to supply, there is no direct route other than through either Azerbaijan or Turkmenistan to actually supply weapons to Iran or get stuff from Iran. They have to bypass either of those two countries, potentially also Uzbekistan and Georgia.
Well, they can go through Azerbaijan and then into Iran, and that's an old route that was used during the Second World War, for crying out loud, when the Nazis were attacking Russia. That's one of the reasons why the Brits took over Iran. It was neutral at the time, is because they could run equipment up into Russia through Azerbaijan there. Via
Azerbaijan was a Soviet state at that time, as was Georgia. So running that supply route from Iran or Iraq even through that way, both were British protectorates at the time.
Yeah, and Russia's been working with Azerbaijan lately a lot. So they did not protect Armenia during the Nagorno-Karabakh war that just happened. They've been reaching out more to Azerbaijan, so we would see there's a big massive profits for Azerbaijan anyway. But in any case, if Russia supplies Iran, like we see that Russia's being attacked now, it's oil, which is its lifeline. In order to keep the heat off of itself, if it supplies the Iranian war effort to divert American and Western weaponry away from itself, it might do that. And and that's why I think, even though Ukraine has had some successes lately on the battlefield, it's still going to lose in the long run because of attrition if the West doesn't do more to help it. I mean, shutting off the shadow fleet is a big way in which to strangle Russia. But if Russia starts feeding Iran, and this war goes to 5 or 6 weeks, like Trump says it could, then a lot of munitions could be used. They're hitting Iran hundreds of times already, thousands of times. Every one of those missiles costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. Three F-35s have got knocked out of the air supposedly by friendly fire. Each one of them is like 32 million dollars. So you just lost $100 million worth of equipment in a place of a few half an hour or so. When the pilots are alive, but you've got $100 million worth of equipment that went down. This all leans hard on the American taxpayer, obviously.
Yeah. One of the things I also noted, by the way, was that Dubai suffered I believe it was Dubai. It was either Dubai or Qatar suffered an attack on one of was both of them. Okay. On one of, both of their centers. But of course, just to put that in perspective, it's like both of those countries are less than 100 miles across the Gulf of Oman, and the Persian Gulf, I mean.
Yeah, and I don't know, it's usually they're pretty good at hitting military zones, but they hit a hotel, and and they were kind of criticized for that. But apparently there was an Israeli I don't know, Israeli IDF station under the hotel, built under the hotel or something. I don't know. Anyway, that was the rumor. Then you have idiots like Netanyahu.
I don't know whether that whether that is true or not. There's no independent confirmation about that. But essentially, what you're saying here is we're seeing essentially these things being linked together.
There's all kinds of different theories what's going on. One of them, like a military expert I was listening to, said that it looks as if the Iranian military, it's in sort of pockets and it's just shooting at anything it can see. It has, because of the communications, of course, their communications have fallen flat. The cyber espionage has come in and blown apart their communication strategies and all that. So each one of the independent areas of the military are firing what they were originally aiming at.
Yeah.
So there's no coordination in aiming things specifically. I'm not sure. It seems to one military advisor that it's kind of a willy-nilly fighting back. I'll throw some here, I'll throw some there, I'll throw some there, without any real strategy involved. So they'll hit all the closest targets, which they should not do, because that might bring Saudi Arabia into it. It might bring Qatar and all these other ones that want to sort of stay low. They may include their own military in this. France's some of France's facilities have been hit. British facilities have been hit, and I think it was Cyprus. They were hit. So, so a lot of other, because of the willy-nilly type of hit back, that's going to draw in other powers into the war. This particular general, whoever I was listening to, said it doesn't look like it's a real coordinated attack. It's just fight back, throw anything you got at anything you could see.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's basically what we've seen. And it's like the question about drones and drone attacks is, unless you can really, they have power to do a lot more. But again, I think Ukraine is basically just getting desperate right now.
As far as Ukraine, but they've found some advantages lately, and that, of course, is they're very happy about the ghost ships, the shadow fleet, being intercepted, and these unsanctioned oil shipments being interrupted. That's the source of a great deal of Russian money. Remember when that Russian-Ukraine war was to begin, Biden and the other administrators said Russia can't last more than a year or two because it doesn't have any money. They've did nothing but have money, and they had all kinds of money coming in, and that was because of the shadow fleet. We also found out the American and Western American suppliers of Russia were going through Kazakhstan instead of going through the other way, and still were supplying Russia with the things they needed. I mean, Russia had to pay for them, but still they got whatever they wanted. And
land shipments across that border. Iran is a pretty powerful oil producing nation in and of its own right. So Iran and Russia, we're talking about a couple of the largest suppliers of oil in the world, right?
Yes, there's like 20% of the world's oil goes through that Straits of Hormuz.
Yes. Yeah.
A huge hunk of that's Iranian oil, but of course Saudi Arabia oil, Qatari oil, whatever other oil producers there are there in the Gulf, right? Iran, of course, is a big oil producer, and I think they have a particular good form of crude. I'm not sure about that though.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so moving back here locally, or more to Ontario, whilst it did happen locally, it's not specifically locally. Sex offender registry, mandatory lifetime ban is that, or lifetime registration has been found to be unconstitutional. There's a couple of cases now which have challenged this, and basically the court. This is the Supreme Court of Canada, not a lower court, but they decided. This is at the John Sapinka courthouse in Hamilton. The court has found that the mandatory lifetime registration for those with mental illnesses who pose increased risk of disproportionate was disproportionate and discriminatory. So if you're on the sex offender, this is not everybody on the sex offender registry. This is those that have been declared as having a mental illness, suffering from a mental illness.
But how are we?
Technical, I know, but it has to be understood. It's not everybody. It's just those suffering a mental specific mental illnesses.
Well, how are we supposed to be defended against a mentally ill, sex offender?
Yeah.
So it may burden his rights. The rights may be intruded, but to support the predators or the sex offender's rights, we then have to be vulnerable. Then we then have to be more victims, our population victimized by that.
Yeah, it's a fair question. Yes, I'm as you know, while I know something about the law, I don't profess in the least to be an expert in criminal. I do not deal with any criminal law at all, right?
Well, my problem here is, that may be technically true, but then they're going to have to change the law then, because it doesn't matter if the guy's got a mental illness problem. He's still going to be a perpetrator of crime. We have to defend ourselves against that person.
And this is actually where I would say that whilst if you've got multiple strikes on sex offences, you should be out. There should be lock you up and throw away the key. So whether there's an registry or not, they should be gone.
Yeah, well, but even the first one, you're a sex offender and you're not going to go on the registry because you have a mental health issue. Well, you're going to cause a lot of mental health issues by putting that guy out back on the street without having some sort of registry. Like, I mean, it may be technically the rights may be intruded upon, but isn't law supposed to protect the society?
Yeah.
And now you're saying that the rights of this person supersedes the rights of safety for our children.
Yeah. Well, not just our children. This is not pedophile registry. This is sex offender registry.
Well, or young ladies then, or young boys, or people of any kind. Usually the victims are younger, aren't they? Usually. Yeah.
People who are specifically at risk. Yes, we're talking about people who are.
Yeah, it's normally they're very young and they're very old.
That's right.
Or people, you could get a person. Oh wow, So,
but okay, so essentially what they're saying is legislation was declared invalid due to a failure to provide a path for exemption based upon risk and reinforcing stigma. And they're basically saying that the remedy, the declaration of invalidity was suspended to allow the province to amend the law, although the specific appellant was granted an exception.
I don't know. What do you think? I don't like it.
Well, I think the time for there has to be time for an amendment of the law, because this is dramatic. This is a big impact, and for the province to amend the law, or for the nation, for the federal government to amend the law, is a must in this regard.
I don't know. This seems to me like I don't know. I can't even find the link now. But basically, I don't know. I disagree with the judge here. He is now he has to have some sort of interim type of situation he has to come up with, I think, if he's going to be now taking that guy away from a sex offender registry, which will help the police with any kind of at least be able to eliminate him in any kind of sex offense that goes forward. I don't know the extent of the sex offender registry, but I think that the judge should have had some sort of in-between solution to protect people from a sex offender. The guy may have mental health issues or whatever, but still, I mean, Hannibal Lecter had mental issues, That's my play on this.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Absolutely, you're not wrong. But again, the way we develop law is by the courts actually looking at every individual case and assessing that on its merits, and that then leads to, in terms of Supreme Court, the Supreme Court of Canada decision ultimately is a decision that that we have to live by.
I can't even find that article. Okay, you shared that, right?
I did, yeah. Yeah, it was a Spectator article. Actually, you shared it.
I did. Oh, I probably did. Yeah. How far back?
Yesterday morning.
2 days ago, is it? What?
Yesterday morning.
Yesterday morning. I cannot find it.
Monday, 15:07.
I cannot find it at all.
Okay, let me. I'll.
Oh, here it is. I've got it finally. Yeah. So I don't know. It says here you don't know anything about you don't know much about this particular case and you don't do criminal law, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
So your expertise on this isn't really much valuable to us right at this particular point. Last year, Hamilton conducted 418 sexual assault investigations that did not involve an immediate intimate partner. They say 73 were committed by strangers. The registry provides real-time access to sex offender information, such as voice characteristics, weights, tattoos, scars, and dental features. In cases with an unknown suspect, police say they can conduct radius searches to identify registered sex offenders living near the crime scene. So this helps the police in a big way. Craig noted that during the Roberts case, no specific examples were given of how the Ontario registry was of use in the Hamilton 25 years since the registry was created. So the judge concluded he is not persuaded that lifetime reporting assists police in time-sensitive investigations. Yeah.
Well,
You can't convince me that it works. So Ham of the police told the Spectator, well, not every use results in a public outcome. The ability to act quickly and accurately, particularly vulnerable victims, are involved. So basically, they have a sex offense, and they know where the sex offender lives, and they can quickly include or disclude them basically right away, and know where to go. If you leave sex offenders unidentified, the police say that will complicate their investigations. So if you have four sex offenders living in an area where somebody has been attacked or being offended against, you can quickly go to these different individuals and either find out whether they're included or not included, the ones living close in the area, and then either strike them off the list and move on to other possibilities. If you don't have that, then they have to search out the people they know are there. They have to sort of start all over again. And the judge says, well, I don't think that works very well. And the police says, yes, it does. So who are you going to believe?
Yeah.
Police say this is good for us. Yeah. Yeah, I think. Nice haircut. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks, Chris.
This is always going to be a highly emotive subject anyway, as you well know, Dave.
Yeah, it will be. And I don't think we should discuss it much more because we have no answers.
Yeah, we don't. No, that's for sure. All right, I'm going to move on. U.S. allies. Whoops, that was a blooper. All right. Okay. So U.S. allies are trying to avoid getting drawn into criticizing Washington or attacking Tehran.
Yeah, so Pete Hegseth has kind of implied that the U.S. traditional allies were kind of really wimp milksops because the U.S. actually did something about Iran where everybody else always complained about Iran but did nothing about it. And the United States stepped up and did something, actually overcame their reluctance to do war, didn't clutch their pearls, as he said. And pretty much what he has said is kind of happening because all the other powers involved are very reluctant. They are for the U.S. eliminating the nuclear threat. They do not criticize the elimination of the Khomeini, but they will not endorse the attacks either.
Yeah,
they're really, really on the fence, and this is okay.
But again, there is an important factor when it comes to both Britain and France in this regard, and I guess the European Union. Britain and France are basically, before the advent of these strikes, more or less declared themselves as available for mediation, as conflict mediators. Right?
Yeah.
And to some extent, the European Union has done the same.
Well, I think France and Britain were not going to let their airfields be used in this.
Yeah.
But now that Iran has attacked both French and British assets, this might bring Britain into it. They're now allowing the Americans to use their airfields and so on because the Iranians have attacked them. But it's still very tepid. Nobody wants to touch this with a 10-foot pole. Nobody wants to denounce the United States going after a brutal regime like the Khomeinis. They're trying to eliminate a very terrible, brutal regime that has exported terror, and has been very, very harsh on its own citizens. And at the same time, they can see problems happening if this continues. So they don't want to be behind it, because if this war goes on for a long, long time, they don't want to get involved in it. They don't want to be the ones that have to produce the weapons. They don't want to march in there either. This thing could go on for 5 or 6 more weeks. It could go on for a lot longer than that. They're just kind of hoping the Iranians will run out of weapons within that 4 or 5 weeks. But in the meantime, the U.S. and Israel will have used up tons and tons of their own weapons, paid for by the American taxpayer, by the way.
The irony, of course, is that as you use more weapons, they're going to buy more weapons off the weapons manufacturers, which will actually cause a mini boom within that sector of the American economy anyway, and not just American, coincidentally Canadian or European weapons manufacturers where they supply the US.
Yeah, so here's the kind of talk you have. Iran must never be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon, says spokesman from the British government. The German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, said it shared U.S. interest in ending this regime of terror. And French President Macron insisted on diplomacy. All said that they weren't involved in the military action. That's very important because they don't want any kind of retaliation on them, but carefully skirt a judgment of legality. So they're not really, they're just kind of saying, yeah, well, we kind of don't like it. We kind of like it. We kind of like the fact that you're trying to eliminate Iran's ability to get a nuclear weapon. But we kind of don't like the fact that the way you're doing it, we could have used a little bit more diplomacy, says the French. Iran is backed into a corner, but obviously the United States and Israel found that Iran was very, very vulnerable to a strike right now.
Yeah.
The negotiations they had with Iran were fake negotiations. That is my opinion, and I think it's true. They were building up an incredible amount of military hardware in the area. That was for an attack. There's no way they were not going to attack when they brought up all those carriers and all the weapons that they brought to bear on Iran. That wasn't just leverage. That was they're going to attack. And both Israel and the United States saw that Iran was in particular bad shape. They had just finished having riots all through the streets. The people were very, very upset. They had huge riots. They killed over 7,000 of the protesters. The people of Iran do not like the regime at all. They found that the regime is being weakened by the Hamas and Hezbollah being reduced. The Iranian presence in Syria has almost completely been eliminated. And the money going into Iran has been very much reduced by trade. So this was a perfect time to hit. That's why they hit. They didn't hit. They weren't looking for negotiated solutions. That I think was a big lie. Iran has pointed that out twice. They were negotiating with the United States twice, and as the negotiations are going on, they're getting attacked, right? So they're dangling the carrot of a deal, and then as Iran's waiting to get that deal or trying to figure out if there is a deal, they get bombed.
Yeah.
So this is not going to end anytime soon. It's going to end when Iran runs out of weapons. That's when it's going to end. And can the area sustain a war of that long? Can the Straits of Hormuz be closed off for that long?
Yeah. Well, in fact, actually, Straits of Hormuz is an oddity because unlike the Gulf, unlike the, for example, the English Channel ships just go straight up the English Channel. With the Straits of Hormuz, of course, there's a danger point for ships because they go up and then they have to turn and come down.
So there's a choke point. There's a choke point.
There's very much a choke point, and they have to slow and turn as they go through that choke point. So
I don't think they have to slow. I don't think they slow down too much. That's a pretty wide area.
It's fairly wide, but they do have to turn. And whenever a ship turns, it has to slow.
Yeah, but these are
knots
tankers. They never go too fast. It could be wide open there. The real issue is the narrows. If it was straight in the narrows, oil tankers still don't go that fast.
No.
And they've lit ablaze a few of them already as warnings to others.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The Straits of Hormuz could easily be set on fire with the tankers going through there any time, right?
Well, a couple of them already been lit up.
Yeah, we know that.
You've got a backlog of tankers going and coming that dropped their anchor, seeing what's happening. The Mertz cargo company has redirected all of their ships around Africa now. They're not going through the Suez Canal, and they're not going anywhere near the Straits of Hormuz or anywhere around there. They're redirecting their that will add costs to the items that you buy to, because now there's added transport cost. Of course, the price of oil is going up. It's going to go up a lot. There was a guy there the other day trying to predict where the oil prices were going to go, and he just says, "I would like to tell you that between 10 and 30%, between 10 and 30 cents per gallon, that would be the limit, but I cannot promise that."
Yeah.
So it's going to go up. It's already gone up. We see it here in
town. It's already gone up 10 cents over the weekend.
Yeah.
Because I know what I filled the car up at on Friday night. I know what I saw the price of gas was at the same gas station on Monday morning.
And it will have reverberating effects, because the United States taxpayers are going to have to come up big time with coin for this, and and because they like to give tax breaks to the rich, it's going to be the average person that pays. And it says here, Rubio admits they are an Israel puppet. Yeah, he admitted Israel is going to hit Iran. Iran would hit the USA bases, so they went on a self-defense. What? Yeah. So basically, what they were saying, they didn't come right out and said it. They said if Iran was going to get hit, we knew that Iran would hit us. So when Israel started the campaign, the U.S. jumped in to join them, because they felt that they better join in, or else they're going to be attacked anyway. They figured if Israel attacked them, Iran would fight back, not only against Israel but to the U.S. To sort of preempt that, they're going to jump in with the Israelis. It's dumb. It's the dumbest excuse I've ever heard in my life. Everybody knew that you were not going to negotiate a deal. You're there. You brought all those weapons to bear for a reason, and that was to stomp all over Iran. Whether that's going to work or not, who knows? Yeah. I mean, you got rid of the policy seems to be to search out everywhere where there's a potential leader and hit them, and they continue to do that. They try to hit out all the different command centers. They're trying to hit as many commanders as possible they can absolutely find. So I don't know how far that's going to go. Are they going to start shooting, try to assassinate everyone right down to a corporal? You know, and the Iranian army is huge. So the Iranian army, the police, and the militias, there are an incredible amount of armed men available for any fight against any landed group of men that hit the shores of Iran. If anyone wants to invade, another thing is that there is no single organized group that can take over. Most of the rebellions that have been happening inside, the revolts that have been happening inside Iran, are spontaneous and they grow, but there's no single organized unit that conducts the revolts or can direct them directly against the government to a point where they could take over. Now you might get a renegade general making a deal with the U.S. so that he then could be the big poobah. Who knows? But right now, the U.S. Doesn't, according to what they're saying, they kind of hope they could get a regime change, but they're not going to get a change in government. I think what they're going to do is look for another puppet government like they have in Venezuela.
Yeah. All right.
Something like that. It couldn't be the same because Iran is so huge and so dominant in the area.
Yeah.
But they might come up with a deal. Look, you play ball with us, we'll play ball with you. General so and so, look, we're gonna go come behind you. You sell us your oil, and we'll take care of the rest. You know.
Yeah. All right. Coldest night of the year event occurred over the weekend, Saturday night, in the Penn Center, and agencies. This is raising money. We raised $450,000, which goes to Project Share, Open Arms Mission in Welland, Start Me Up Niagara in St. Catharines, YWCA Niagara Region, and Brain Injury Association of Fort Erie. All right, so these events are to provide agencies some of the to support some of the most vulnerable people in Niagara. So that's giving ongoing support to those organizations.
Yes, it sounds well. It sounds good, of course, but the problem is, it's growing. The need is growing over and over and over.
Yeah, we know
now. So of course, this of course is going to provide money coming into Project Share, and they're going to be able to use it. But it seems to be an endless thing. It just gets growing bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah. And where is that point where Project Share will have to turn its administration over to a welfare department somewhere along the line because it's getting just too big to sustain itself? Now, one of the things I'll point this out, which surprised me, that some of the money that Project Share uses is to sort of arbitrate between tenant and landlord issues. That was in the article. Like they were able to use some of their money for tenant and landlord issues to help mediate them somehow.
Yeah.
So I don't know where that comes from. Maybe it's a tenant getting tossed out because they don't have enough money to pay their rent. But that just shows you that the expansion of Project Share, how much will it be able to take care of? We could feel grateful that Project Share is there to do what it is doing, but it just keeps growing and growing and growing, and the need keeps growing, and that doesn't seem to be ending. So what's going to do? I mean, can we continue this? Can we continue this forever? Do we always have to be a charitable state?
Yeah.
Most people, I think that people nowadays have been asked to provide more for charity than they ever have been ever before. Domestic charity. It used to be that people would, donate a little bit locally and a little bit overseas, and they would have that. Okay, so I'll give to Plan International, and I'll give to the Salvation Army, and there you go. But the local needs are growing all the time, huge. Yeah. In the meantime, it hasn't got any better outside of our borders either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so, and the whole point is that they are doing what they can to help vulnerable people, and there's a lot of that that's a growing population across Niagara, and that's why Coldest Night of the Year is an important event.
Well, it says it raised $450K.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money, and we're providing that money for people that shouldn't have to be helped.
Oh, agreed.
And I think these people should not have to be helped. These people should have a job that sustains them. they should have enough money coming in to take care of themselves as far as shelter and food, good healthy food and shelter. And yet we keep falling behind in those areas.
Yeah.
We find the stratification of society where the wealthy are getting wealthier and the poor are getting poorer, and the middle class is getting squeezed. And the bottom part of that middle class is being cut. And even people safely in the middle class can see their buying power being reduced all the time, their ability to get homes delayed. Is this a trend going forward? Is this a trend where the middle class will begin to split? It would be those parts of the professional middle class will divide themselves from the ordinary middle class, and we will have we'll have middle class and working class and that kind of thing like they did in Britain. I'm not so sure. This is not very good news. I mean, it's good news in a way that they've got all this money, $450,000, but in my mind, it's just as bad, because the news that we are receiving is that we are not prospering. We're going backwards. We are responding to the need, but that need keeps growing. And to me, there's going to be a point where that need falls off. And Project Share in this particular article has also said that other donations have fallen off because people don't have enough to give. And now we are in that situation where the normal kind of donations that come in from the general public have dropped off because the people don't have enough to give them.
And in some respects,
I'll tell you a situation. What's happening in Niagara. As you know, every Monday I go around to collect from stores bingo money, right? Bingo card. Well, we've had 3 stores close up in the Niagara region this year. Corner stores close up, and there will be more. And every corner store I go to and talk to, the people who are selling the cars for us, business is down. People don't have any money. There are, and when I was talking to one guy about stores closing, he says, "Oh yeah," he says, "and there are going to be more." It's because the way he said it, in this economy, things are just going to get worse. So what we find here is we have Project Share where the needs exploding, and we find the common folk have less to give. They even have less spare money to go to corner stores.
Yeah. Well, in fact, actually, I was talking to the corner store on Bridge Street. They've just been taken over by new owners. Talking to the new owners there, they've expanded the store back again. They didn't like the Amazon bundle business that the previous owners had. They've opened the store back up again to a full store, but they're actually going to start selling food there on daytimes.
Yeah, they have to do something. It used to be that store used to be a very busy one. As a matter of fact, I take my bingo cards there every Monday, and I was there, yesterday exactly, and of
course.
And we used to sell 80 to 100 bingo cards in that store a few years ago. We sell 20 now. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Moving on. BC is to end the time changes to adopt all year round daylight time. The question then becomes one of, in 2020, Bill 214 amended the Time Act, but the amendments to the Time Act have yet to be put in place. Is it time, Ontario? Is it time?
Oh, yeah. I don't know.
Well, BC is doing it. BC is doing it. There's a lot of people in BC who like it. There's also people who don't dislike it, of course. But British Columbians no longer have to change their clock.
'Cause,
British Columbians no longer have to change their clock. British Columbians no longer have to change their clock. British Columbians no longer have to change their clock. British Columbians no longer have to change their clock.
Well, the requirement that the thing that it solved in the beginning, daylight savings time for the northern hemisphere, and I suppose also really southern hemisphere, but northern hemisphere countries in particular, was it saved daylight hours for the working hour days. Of course, we don't need that as much anymore. We have ample amounts of power, so we don't need to factories and workings and all that. I don't know. Daylight savings time still saves money for energy use. That is for sure. But how much of it does it save? About 1%, according to a study that's very old. 1% of all the energy use in the United States, which is considerable, would be saved by the switching time. However, BC is going to get rid of that, and that's okay. I got no problem with that. One way or the other these days, because it's a modern day system. Mm-hmm. We don't really need the savings of daylight for a work day anymore. But but right now they're not coordinating with the other Western, the coastal areas of the United States, Washington and Oregon. That may cause them a lot of grief coming forward.
It might.
We here in Ontario have been very willing to go right straight to daylight time, but we need to coordinate that with our major trading partners in the United States.
And in fact,
that would be New York State, Michigan, all the way down to Kentucky.
Yeah. And in fact, actually, this is the approach that I've got the Time Act open on my computer right now, and it says on a date to be named or proclaimed by the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, Section 2(1) of the Act, amending or striking out, or basically will amend the time that we're at, and on that date, daylight saving time. Shall the time shall be standard time during the entire year, right? When the Lieutenant Governor determines daylight saving time will become the standard time for the year.
Yes.
Right. And at the moment, it is dependent upon three bordering states or provinces doing the same for us.
Yeah. So, basically, we're waiting for them. We're okay with it. If you're okay with it, we'll all do it. But
BC's been a bit bolder.
It really isn't the most important thing on everybody's list.
No, that's for sure.
BC's going to find itself having a problem, isn't it?
Potentially, unless other people go forward at the same time. Maybe they're just trying to cause other people to go with it.
Yeah, maybe they're the first ones to go, but
they're saying we're done.
They would go to. Okay, all right. So we're done waiting. So they're going to do it. Maybe that will motivate the other ones to go. I have a feeling just about every administration, even the Trump administration, the Biden administration, they're all willing to go to eliminate this, but it's been locked in for so long. I don't know if there's anyone. There are some people who don't like the idea of changing because it does provide more daylight in your actual operating hours of the day. That's true. If you've ever, I've had to work a lot of hours, 12-hour days and things like that. I mean, in the morning it's a pain in the ass because it's still dark after you spring forward, but more of the day ahead of that is lit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The irony, of course, is that when my first comment to myself yesterday morning was before we started the show was, hey, It's nice and bright now at 7 o'clock in the morning. I know we're 8 o'clock now, but at the time it was nice and bright because it was 7 o'clock in the morning. I could look out my window here, nice and bright. But I know that upcoming Monday morning, it's going to be dark out there.
Yeah. So but it's going to be lighter later on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But again, in the evening. But the biggest problem most people have is adjusting to that 1 hour switch.
Yeah, I usually don't have too much of a problem, but I'm a retired guy.
You rest in for days, Yeah,
I got no problem. But even when I was working, the only bummer was that last hour of sleep. However, usually it happened during the weekend, so I didn't notice it that much. So you had 2 a.m. on Sunday morning, the shift happens, and I really didn't notice it that much because, normally on Sundays you get Sundays off. But even the problem was when I was working a Sunday, which was quite often, I quite often had to work Sundays during those times, and you go to bed and you lose an hour of sleep, man, that's a bummer.
Yeah. Well, I'll throw one in for you, right? When the clock jumps forward and you lose that time, as we do spring forward in the summer. Well, somebody I know was working a night shift, and the clock that he was looking at the clock, so it was 1:59 and 59 seconds, and then it was 3 a.m. It did. Sorry, 1:50. No, then it was 4 a.m. So it jumped not 1 hour but 2 hours on the clock, and he was psychologically disturbed for years afterwards. And he wrote this question to Neil deGrasse Tyson about that, and Neil deGrasse Tyson said yes, because in fact what happened is your entire psyche moved on, because at the jump it should have gone from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock because you were psyched up from that. Yeah. But it went from 1:59 to 3 o'clock. I mean, you were psyched up, ready for that, but it went from 1:59 to 4 o'clock, and you weren't ready for that. And your entire body was dead because of it.
Yeah.
All right. One occasion, all because I presume the work clock in the place that he was working at had a problem on it.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, we're close to the end here.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to take another pitch for Gaza. Of course, with all the BS going on over there in the Iran war, it appears to be that it's going to be going on for the next month at least, maybe 6 weeks. I think they're going to be trying to scramble around to get some face-saving deal with Iran somewhere along the line.
They will. They'll put in a new new regime somehow.
Well, yeah, they already have it. They were already prepared for this because the Khomeini was old. He was 86.
Yeah.
And they have a system in which to replace the leader, and every one of the different leaders have been assassinated at different times already. So they're used to replacing them. They have 2 or 3 other replacements along the way for other positions in the Iranian military. So what I think they're going to do, Iran's going to get to the point in about 3 weeks from now, is going to understand that they're going to be losing. They're not going to be able to maintain the resistance. At the same time, the U.S. is going to be getting pretty bored of the whole thing, and they're going to see the cost of this, and so they're going to probably try to come up with some face-saving deal with the administration as it sits. But in the meantime, places like Gaza, there will be. This was an excuse for Israel to come brutally down on the Palestinian people in Gaza again. And of course, what they're doing in the West Bank is grotesque. Everybody's eyes are averted away from that, and Israel just loves it. Meanwhile, there's no real journalists in there anymore. They've all been killed, and they're not allowing any outside journalists in. So, be prepared for many BS comments about what's going on there, And I don't know. Let's hope that it's going to take years and years for the Palestinians to be able to regroup and live in Gaza. And what it looks like right now is that Israel has made the yellow line, and it is half the size of Gaza. And in that half of Gaza that is closest to Israel, they're going to want to put their own settlers in there and reduce the 2 million people who live there into half the size of the postage stamp they already lived on.
Yeah.
Anyway, without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace. It's farther away than ever.
Yeah. And have a good evening. Good day.